Now, this is the introduction of this particular unit, which is newspaper content. And we are saying that journalists in the editorial section of the media house need to understand the content of the newspaper. Why? Because it helps you to recognize a newsworthy event that marks the beginning of your stardom in your career. So this unit will take a look at the newspaper content, definition of news, and how to recognize a newsworthy event. So these are the objectives of this particular unit. Number one, by the end of this topic, you must give your own definition of what is news. You must also identify the various criteria for judging the newsworthiness of an event. The next thing is that you must also be able to explain the new trends in deciding the newsworthiness of an event. And the last one, you must also be able to understand the various principles of reporting. So we have how many objectives? 4 objectives. One, you must be able to give your own definition of news. So we are going to define, we have various definitions of news. So we are going to define news. 2, we are going, you must be able to identify the various criteria for judging a newsworthy of an event. That when you look at an event, you can tell whether this event is newsworthy or not. Okay, based on what we call the principles of reporting, or the principles of news, or the values of news. The next thing is that you must be able to explain the new trend in deciding the newsworthiness of an event. So there is a new trend of deciding the newsworthiness of an event. And the last thing, you must also be able to understand the various principles of reporting. So without wasting time, I hope you have a book there, you are writing something. So I'll open these notes once we are done with the topic. So I've said that we will do topic 3 and we will also do topic 4. So that calls for speed. So I'm going to go in a moderate speed so that we can finish this topic and go to the other topic. The reason is we have, you remember that during Eid ul Fitri, the whatever, the holiday, we had to stay at home, and also during Labor Day, it was on Monday, and we had to stay at home. And also remember the week that we lost when we were doing the exams, and also when you're doing your cards. So also those are 4 weeks already. So the 4 weeks you're supposed to be like 3 topics ahead. So that's why I'm saying that we have to finish this topic and go to the other topic. The next week also, we have to finish that particular topic and go to the other one. So for the next, for starting this week and the other week, this week and the other week, we will try our best and cover two topics in every unit. That is a newspaper reporting, and also in what we call sub-editing. Now, I'm starting on this topic. I don't want to waste much time. We've already wasted a lot of time. So the content of a newspaper actually can be broadly classified into 4 types. Namely, you can actually divide the content of the newspaper into 4 main types. You can divide them into features, into news. You can divide the content into features. You can divide also the content into advertisements and opinion pieces. Remember, opinion pieces is where people give their own opinion. Like you can be asked to give your own opinion about the budget that was read by Ukur Yatani. Giving your own opinion does not mean that that is a fact. It is just an opinion. So that is why we have the opinion pieces. And these opinion pieces are what we call the editorials. So when you talk about opinion pieces, they are classified into opinions. We have opinions such as editorials. We have columns. A column is, for example, you find that a certain journalist or a certain writer has been given a section where he will be writing maybe every Tuesday. It can be on diet, it can be on sex, it can be on anything. It can also be on academics. So this person has been given a certain section in a newspaper to be writing. Let's say, for example, a Monday newspaper or a Monday newspaper is given maybe page 3 to be writing something about academics or whatever topic. So we have columns, we have letters to the editors, and we have reviews. We have reviews. So these reviews are views expressed by people within the organization and outside. So when you talk about reviews, we are talking about opinions or views that are expressed by people within the organization, within the newspaper organization, or outside the paper, newspaper organization. That is like you and me. So before wasting time, remember our first objective was to define news. So we have various definitions of news. Actually, according to me, I have 4. Number 1, we can define news as an accurate. News can be defined as an accurate, unbiased account, an accurate, unbiased account of the significant facts of a timely happening that is of interest to people. I'm repeating again, we can define news as an accurate, unbiased account of the significant facts of a timely happening that is of interest to people. I am sharing it with you, that definition. An accurate, I hope you can see it, an accurate, unbiased account of the significant fact of a timely happening that is of interest to people. So that is definition number 1. Definition number 2, we can say news is an event or idea or opinion that is timely, that interests or affect a large number of people in a community, and that is capable of being understood by them. I'm also sharing that you can see what I've just said. Definition number 2. Definition number 3, we can actually say that news is what the newspaper prints, electronic media broadcasts, and new media publishes. I think this is the best and the shortest is what the newspaper prints, what the electronic media publishes, what the electronic media broadcasts, and new media publishes. The last one, but not least, is news may be defined as any fact or idea that will interest a large number of readers. Also, this is a very short definition and easy to remember. So sometimes you might be asked to define news, so you should be defining it like that. News may be defined. I'm looking at the fourth one. News may be defined as any fact or idea that will interest a large number of readers. Now that we have met our first objective, which is to define news, we move to the next thing. And now we are looking at the news determinants. Remember, news determinants are what determines, news determinants are things that can tell you elements that tells you that whatever you are looking at is news. Because sometimes you might be in a dilemma and you might be asking yourself, is this news or what is it? Now with the news determinants, it is easy to know whether it is news or not. So sometimes we call these news determinants newsworthiness. No, not newsworthiness, but news values. We call them news values. We call them the elements of news. We also call them the features of news, etc. Number one, let me start with number one. Number one is impact. Impact is an event that causes or is capable of causing great sequence of events affecting many persons. Like, for example, the budget was read. I heard that the gas, those people who uses gas to cook or to prepare meals, the cost of the gas was increased by a certain percentage. The reason why I'm looking at the gas is because it affects many people. Many people are using gas to cook. And you'll come to realize that because of that budget that was read, there is what we call effect. There is an impact to many people. That budget, there is an impact to many people. Also, there is an impact as far as those people who are using sanitizers and what we call these things, the masks and so on and so forth. There is a cut in what we call the VAT. It was dropped. I mean, the percentage, the VAT went down because I think because of fighting COVID-19. And this one had an impact also to those people who are buying and to those people who are selling. So number one, we have talked about impact. Impact is one of the determinants of news, or we can call it again consequences. So the consequences of the budget. We had positive consequences and negative consequences when the budget was read. The next thing is conflict. Anything that is conflicting in nature is newsworthy. Things like wars, things like murders, violence, strikes, conflict between political parties, or conflict within political parties, like what we there is Jubilee, there is conflict within Jubilee party. Sometimes back there was conflict within ODM, conflict between nations. You've heard of conflict between Israel and North Korea and South Korea and so on and so forth. Rumors of wars between nations. Also conflict between a man and the other, or a man between Hello, Michael, can you hear me? So you can switch off your microphone. We continue from where we stopped. So we were on conflict, and we said that most conflicts are newsworthy to some degree, and conflicts such as wars, murders, and violence, strikes, also conflict between political parties. We gave an example of within political parties and outside political parties such as Jubilee and NASA or ODM. We also gave an example of conflict between nations or wars like South Korea, North Korea versus Israel. We also have conflict between man and man and nature. The next thing is disaster and tragedy. This is another news determinant, which is called disaster and tragedy. And this one refers to terrorist attacks, floods. Like we had sometimes back, we had what we call terrorist attacks in Kenya. We also have floods such as tsunami, nuclear radiation in a country like in Japan, super cyclone killing 1,000 people, a volcano eruption. Those are what we call disasters. And disasters are part of the news what? The news determinants. Then we have proximity. Proximity actually refers to nearness or closeness. Like for example, when an accident happens in Kenya, maybe along Gong Forest, we give it a lot of what? A lot of prominence than an accident that happens in maybe South Korea or maybe US. Like the plane that crashed somewhere in Meru or something on its way to Marsabit. We gave it what we call more prominence because it happened within our country and it involved our people. But when you hear a plane crash somewhere in maybe India or somewhere in South Africa, that one we do not so much pay attention that much. You don't give it that prominence. We only give it more prominence if at all there are Kenyans inside. That's when we give it more prominence. So that is proximity, nearness. That when something is near to us, it is more newsworthy than something that is far away from us. Then there is what we call human interest. Human interest refers to feelings and emotions. Human interest, these are stories that have got the human element in it. Like when you hear of a billionaire, a business millionaire donating a kidney to a 12-year-old, that is newsworthy. When you hear somebody like Titus Naikuni is donating a kidney to a poor child who is maybe who lives in Kibera, or maybe the mother is unable to pay for the hospital bills or something of the sort, that is newsworthy because it is of human interest. And then we have, or when you hear a person, a student, like I had some news on a 16-year-old child killing his is it nephew or something. He stabbed him on the head. That is newsworthy because he's a child killing another child. Then there is what we call novelty. Novelty is an unusual event or we can call it unusualness. Like when you hear of a two-headed calf, ama ndama ambaye ako na vichwa viwili, a cat that walked 200 kilometers to find its owner, that's newsworthy because it never happens. A cat cannot walk 200 kilometers. 200 kilometers is approximately from here to Nyeri, from Nairobi to Nyeri. Can you imagine a cat walking from Nairobi to Nyeri just to look for its owner? That is unusual. Or a mother giving birth to 5 babies in a delivery room. That is newsworthy. And it is unusual. Then we have eminence and prominence. So when you talk about eminence and prominence, this we are saying that prominent people make news. Prominent people make news. Even when something, it looks like something usual, they make news. Like when you hear of President Uhuru Kenyatta boarding a matatu from where he stays to somewhere like to Jogoo House, that is newsworthy. Why? Because he's a prominent person. But when you board a matatu you yourself from where you stay, maybe to school, it is not newsworthy. Because number one, you are not prominent. But if you are prominent like Raila Odinga and the rest, and you board a matatu just to go to Zitek University, then that is newsworthy because you are a prominent person. So prominent people make news. You have had also these people, and when you talk about prominent people might be celebrities, prominent people might be leaders of certain organizations, leaders in a nation, etc, etc. Like when you hear of a celeb who has given birth, like when there is this guy called Njugush, some few years back, they gave birth to a baby boy, and it was news. Why? Because he's a celeb. But when an ordinary person gives birth, it is never news. It is never news to us. Another thing is money. Money is another determinant of news. Like when you talk about the budget is all about the national, state, and how money is going to be budgeted to do various things in the nation. When you talk about taxes, like right now, I think the fuel, the price of the fuel has gone down, and it is newsworthy. It is newsworthy. The salary hikes and the economic crisis, like we are going through a very difficult economic time, so that is newsworthy. The celebrity values, that one falls under what we call prominence, etc, etc. Any question, Mr. Michael? Kuna swali? Michael, is there any question? Michael, are you here? So let's go to what we call types of news. And we are saying that news stories can be divided into two types, namely straight news and interpretative news. So a straight news story gives factual account of what has happened in a simple, direct, and clear and accurate manner. While interpretative news stories report events in depth. They give all sides of the event, and they provide background information and put new meaning into event so that the reader can understand and appreciate the event. Straight news can be further classified into predictable and unpredictable news. Some news can be predicted or anticipated. So such news should be marked in advance by the chief reporter and assigned to reporters. For example, the murder of a policeman or a cabinet minister, collapse of a building, a terrorist attack, resignation of a minister, the theft of an idol from a famous temple. Those are incidents that are unpredictable. But some scholars will classify news into hard or soft news. And stories that falls into the hard news category report specific tangible events such as fire. So when you're talking about hard news stories, these are things like fires, accidents, deaths of prominent people, etc. While when you talk about news stories that provide explanation, analysis, and interpretation, these are all called soft news. So when you talk about soft news are news that relate to human interest, and they are newsworthy, but they are newsworthy stories, but they are not talking about difficult, things like fire, death, etc., etc. These are like feature stories. So principles of reporting. So we have various principles of reporting. Number one of the principle is accuracy. So every journalist should be able to write stories that are accurate, that are precise, with every bit of the details of a story. So readers tend to judge newspaper credibility by its record of accuracy. So you must be accurate. These are principles of reporting. You must be accurate. Number two, there must be attribution. So when you talk about attribution, we are talking about the source identification should be as specific as possible. So failure to attribute your story or failure to identify your what we call your source can make the story it makes the story not to be it makes the stories to be story or a story to be suspicious. But when you put your source there, then the story ceases to be suspicious and it becomes what we call credible. The next point is fairness. That when you're reporting stories, make sure that you are fair. You should be fair in your presentation of information. The next point is objectivity. So we have 4 principles of reporting. Number 1 is accuracy, attribution, fair, and objectivity. That as far as objectivity is concerned, writers should strive to keep their personal opinion out of their news stories. Remember that a journalist is a person and he has his own opinion. He has his own affiliates to a particular party. And he is supposed to report news as a journalist. So sometimes because you are a person, you might find yourself leaning on one side and giving one side maybe leaning on one side of a story. So in such a circumstance, you will come to realize that your story is not going to be objective. So as a reporter, report news on both sides. Stop leaning on one side so that your news might have what we call objectivity. So we have various types of what we call feature stories. Like, for example, we have profiles and personality features. They talk about people. They describe interesting people, famous people, or people who are going through a difficult situation, like the handicap, etc. We also have historical features. We are talking about feature stories. Historical features, they talk about they commemorate the dates of important events, such as is it in India or is it in Japan? The bombing of Hiroshima. In India, we have the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi and tsunami tragedy. Those are historical features. We also have adventure features. Adventure features, we are talking about things like exciting experiences. Let's say, for example, you're talking about survived an aeroplane, like someone who has survived an aeroplane crash. Maybe somebody, for example, who had climbed a very dangerous mountain, etc. Those are what we call adventure features. Then we have seasonal features. Seasonal features are things like Independence Days, topics of holidays, like Valentine's Day, Women's Day, Men's Day, etc. Apart from that, we also have explanatory features, which are also called interpretative features. And in these features, the writers provide more detailed description or explanation of topic in the news. Like, we can look at a topic like, for example, the economy or the tax. So when you're talking about the tax, we'll be looking at the gainers and the losers as far as the budget is concerned, and what percentage of tax was added, and which one was what percentage was deducted. So those are what we call explanatory features. We can have a feature story explaining to us the commodities that were highly taxed and those that were not taxed at all, or those that were the tax or the VAT was removed. So we also have unusual occupation or hobby features. So a reporter may write about an occupation because it is dangerous, like cleaning up oil spills, or maybe, for example, personal fitness, or a movie star, or etc. We are talking about unusual occupation or hobby features. Then there is personal experience features. When you talk about personal experience features, we are talking about the feature stories that can be written in the first person with a journalist. For example, you can say, I went to maybe Mount Everest, I did this, I was done this, I was arrested, the police beat me seriously, etc. Now, those are personal experience features. Then we have human interest features. And human interest features, deals with the ordinary person in an extraordinary circumstance. For example, a construction worker winning 500,000 Rotary. Or maybe, for example, a person living in Kibera winning a Rotary. That one is a human interest feature. So they appeal to emotions of readers, because you can imagine a person who has been having problem all through his life. He has now become a millionaire all of a sudden. Now those are what we call features. So unless there is a question, Michael, maybe we can proceed to the next thing. The next topic. What is remaining in this topic is all about the editorial. You're going to read about the editorial and the columns and the interviews. Columns, the interviews. Editorial, columns, and the interviews. Do you have a question?
Yes. I have a question. If you have to write a feature about maybe a leader in South Africa, maybe who was in the 19th century, is that a profile or a historical feature? Yes.
You have been told to write a feature about a journalist, eh?
A leader. No, about a leader in South Africa.
A leader.
Maybe in the 19th century. Maybe let's say Shaka Zulu. So would that be a profile or a historical feature?
It can be both. It can be a historical.
Yes.
But not, it leans mostly on historical, but not profile. Because when you talk about profile,
yes,
profile feature is a feature that talks about a person and his interests. Like for example, I believe you have one time bought a newspaper, and there is this section whereby you find that there is like a musician being interviewed. Unaona ameandika hobbies, musician ameandika hobbies zenye anapenda, then anaulizwa maybe the most intriguing, the most difficult situation that he has ever encountered, then this person lists. Now that one is a profile. That one is a profile. So as far as what you're telling me is concerned, that one will fall under historical. That one will fall under historical mostly, but not profile. But also it can be a profile. But to a bigger percentage, it is falling under historical.
Okay.
Any other question?
Okay, about this attribution. See, can't you use I see that some journalists they may not allocate, they may not identify their sources. That's a skill.
They write anonymous.
Yes, I mean they just write that the source is either reliable or unreliable.
The reason why sometimes remember one of the things one of the journalistic code of conduct is that you should not do what? You should not you should protect your sources. If a source don't want to be mentioned, then you can write anonymous.
Yes.
Or you can write something. But if the source is comfortable, then you can indicate the source. It is always good to indicate the source.
Yes.
Like for example, you're talking about the budget. The budget that was read. Maybe you are giving us a column. You're a columnist. Writing something about the budget. And you have written down. Remember, as far as that particular thing you're talking about, as far as the budget is concerned, I don't think there is somebody who should not want to be, who should not want to be identified. You see, it is not a big deal. But there are those instances whereby the journalist will always protect the source, especially when they are talking about very, very sensitive information about something. Very sensitive information about something. Like, for example, you're talking about the president and the awkward situation that he was found in. Of course, I, the source, will do what? I'll tell the journalist not to include my name. Because if he or she includes my name, I'm going to be in a danger. So therefore, we leave it at that. What else? Any other question?
No.
Because there is no any other question. Okay, I've not exhausted so much. We have looked at news, and we have said news is classified as either soft or hard news. So we have straight news and actually straight news and unpredictable news. So there is straight news and interpretative news. That is another word for soft news and hard news. Then we have looked at principles of reporting. And from the principles of reporting, we came back to what we call features and the types of features that we have. Remember, we talked about editorial. Editorial, you will read it. And editorial is classified into 4 sections. We have interpretative editorial, action-oriented, critical editorial, and humorous editorial. Then from there, you will look at interviews, and then we call it a day. So I'm leaving interview for you to read and editorial, so that we go to the next topic. And when we go to the next topic, I'm going to create another meeting. I will create another meeting.
Can you repeat the statement? Yes.
I'm saying this
yes.
That I'm going to. This is a newspaper content.
Yes.
I'm going to release the notes immediately.
Yes.
Once I release the notes, I'm going to the next topic, and I'm going to create another meeting. And that meeting, I will call it the topic that we are going to discuss. Remember, I'm trying to rush because of time. We are in topic 3. We are supposed to be in like topic 6. Then from there, maybe we will talk after that. So let's go to the next topic.